Hello everyone and welcome back to Wrench Guru. I'm Brandon and I'm going to read to you a little bit from our article, which is a very simple question: how much does a transmission weigh? And if you're interested in reading the entire article, you can click on the link below and go over to the website and do just that. Right now, let's get straight into it. So, how much does a transmission weigh? Of course, the weight can determine the way you go about working on your car or what you're actually able to do on your car or your truck or whatever type of vehicle you have. So let's take a look at the answer here. Just how much does a transmission weigh? Well, the simple answer to that is most transmissions generally weigh between 100 and 400 pounds. There are, however, some special exceptions, though for the general public and typical vehicles that most of us drive, this is the common weight range of a transmission. So, why does the actual weight of a transmission really matter at all? Well, you might need to know this particular bit of information if you're thinking about working underneath your car, working on the transmission itself, buying some parts for it, or maybe listing it for sale. Obviously, if you're going to ship it somewhere or move one around, then it's important because it could mean that it would be too expensive for you to have it moved, right? But regardless of all of that, it could be helpful for you to know this information. So I'm not just going to give you the answer to the weight of the transmission. We're also going to look at some other ins and outs of this particular answer, some related information, so that you can be a well-informed driver or do-it-yourself shade tree mechanic. If you're ready to learn a little more, then let's take a look. A little more about the weight of a transmission. As we stated before, depending on the make and the model of your car, your transmission can typically weigh from about 100 pounds all the way up to 400. It's obvious that the size and the weight of your transmission will increase as you size up your vehicle. So this means that a smaller sedan, such as a Ford Pinto, that's right, I said Ford Pinto, it will have a more lightweight transmission than a minivan would, or much less than like an SUV or something like that. If there's maybe a front-wheel drive sedan or something like that, they tend to weigh around 100 pounds. It's not too much, but if you have a large van or an SUV, it could be around 400 pounds or even more. When it comes to the actual transmission weight, front-wheel drive vehicles and rear-wheel drive vehicles don't show a lot of variation, actually. The number of speeds available on your transmission, keep in mind that while you may be able to lift a small transmission by one hand, yes, that's right, it's possible to lift a small transmission by one hand, it's always best to use what's called a cherry picker in order to lift your transmission, or a transmission jack when you're moving one around or working with one. This is mainly for safety purposes and so that you don't injure yourself. For example, an old colleague of mine actually hurt her back really badly from moving around some very lightweight stuff. I know it sounds hard to believe, but she's relatively young. She was relatively young at the time. She's still not old, but you get the point. She was working in an office, and she reached up high to get some printer paper, just maybe two packages of printer paper. I don't mean the whole box. I mean like just one package that you would put in the printer. And just the combination of the angle that she was grabbing them and the weight, it hurt her back really badly. And so you can imagine what even a small transmission could do to you if you're picking it up and moving it around the wrong way. So I would stress that to you right now, please be careful in how you move around heavy objects, especially a transmission. So maybe you have the question, which is lighter, the automatic transmission or the manual transmissions? Well, we've discussed the high-level differences between a manual and automatic transmission later in the article. I'm sorry, it says we've already discussed it. This is actually something we discussed later in the article, so I'll go back and change this. But for now, it's only natural for us to wonder which of the two weights is the most, manual or automatic. In general, there is only a small difference between 50 and 75 pounds between the automatic and manual transmissions, but the manual tends to be lighter most of the time. It's just by design. So it's helpful to make the comparison, especially if you're in the market for a new car. If that's something of interest to you, if you're looking for some reason, if you're looking for a car that's going to be a little lighter, it's possible that you could, lighten up the load a little by getting a manual transmission. In many cases, the manual transmission is the lightest bet, of course, like I just said, but compared to the automatic models that possess the same torque abilities and gear ratios, its heavier size helps to explain why the automatic models have poorer fuel economy and drivetrain loss. So that's another thing to think about. So it's not just about having the lighter car, but think about it. The heavier size of the automatics and the way they work with the torque abilities and gear ratios, it causes them to have a poorer fuel economy than manual ones. So if you've ever wondered that, that's also the reason why. That's the reason why. So why do they weigh more? It's because of the way they're made. Automatic transmissions are enclosed in an iron case, while many manual models have an aluminum one. They're not required to be quite as, I guess you could say, hardy as the iron automatic versions. This difference alone accounts for a significant weight change between 20 and 30 pounds. So just this one difference causes the automatics to generally be about 20 to 30 pounds heavier. There are also the hardware differences, such as the automatic transmission including more parts than the manual one. Because it has to do the shifting itself, it requires more parts, and that means heavier and more intricate. This requires the system itself and the housing to be larger and heavier. So does it mean that the automatic transmission is heavier and therefore makes your car slower? No, not necessarily. The weight difference is not so significant most of the time to affect the performance. After all, the car overall is designed to work with its components, or rather, at least ideally, that is the case. So that means you should opt for the model that you prefer. However, if you check the weights of your car, if, for example, you like to drive faster and you want a car that's a little lighter, generally you can do a better job of accelerating in a car that is not only a little lighter but also has the manual transmission. And that's not just because of the weight, it's just the way it shifts. You can control it more yourself than the car knows how to control in a situation like that. With that said, I will say be careful driving on the road. You shouldn't be trying to drive too fast, but that's up to you. Some people lean towards the manual transmission for the hands-on driver control and the way it allows them to live out their childhood dreams of owning a particular vehicle and driving it the way that they like, which is, this is my childhood dream car, the Lamborghini Countach, and it is not one that I have right now, but I will. It's very awesome. Anyway, other people just want a smooth ride, easy operation of the automatic with the cruise control and all of that, and they don't want to bother shifting. And actually, I like both. I don't have a particular favorite. If I just want to drive around, like in a place like this, and I know it's like a private track. I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about maybe there's some countryside, not too many cars, some good pavement, and I can drive fast. I definitely want to drive a Lamborghini in such a setting. But if I'm going to drive to many hours on like a trip with my girlfriend and a few other people, I definitely don't want to be driving a manual that whole time because it's really going to cramp up my foot. I'm not going to be able to use my cruise control and automatic shifting. It's also going to make it difficult for me to like have a drink and a snack and things like that in the car. I wouldn't want to have a drink and a snack in my Lamborghini necessarily, but then again, it's not the kind of car that I would drive for a very, very long trip unless somehow it was just built for that. But anyway, one other quick question, and then I'm going to refer you over to the article. and that is this: what is the heaviest transmission model? Okay, and to date, one of the heaviest known models that I'm aware of in the transmission category is the Allison 4500. That's actually my middle name that my mom and dad gave me. I think they really wanted a girl, expected a girl, and they got me instead. They got a second boy, and so they just plopped that right in the middle of my name. So anyway, it just happens to be the same name. And this is found in the Medium Tactical Vehicle Replacement, which is the MTVR. It's a 7-speed transmission designed to withstand up to about 1,200 pounds of input torque. So even in a vehicle up to 60,000 pounds of gross weight, this can work. The Allison 4500 is mostly used in military vehicles, though it's gotten some commercial use in firefighting as well. Anyway, from here there's a lot more information. You can see that we've got some tips about using this information in a wise way. A few more questions. What does a transmission actually do? What kinds of transmissions are there? And of course there's the manual and some information about that, and then the automatic and some information about that. A little bit about the planetary gear control and the main components of the transmission, as well as a little bit of plug for our site at the end to let you know that we have a lot of information that can really help you out. So if you're interested, you can check it out, and that's where we'll leave you at for now. We hope that that's been helpful, and wish you a great weekend. See you next time.